Welcome to the world united. Welcome to the world united.
Okay, so Dr. Michael, Carl, if you guys could unmute your mics and just be mindful. I think we're set on speaker view, so if one of us coughs, the the screen will default. But let's open it up. So I heard word that Dr. Pino may be joining us. So if he does, we'll bring him on into the juiciness of what's unfolding. But we're gonna plow through because I now have 2 pages of notes. So so first of all, anything that Dr. Michael, anything you want to start off with, having listened to Carl in response? Let's go there first.
Oh, sure. I loved it. That was great. Self-recording universe. I absolutely totally agree. But and spiritual science, it really has been very aligned. Everything's been, to create division, divide and conquer, the polarities, but it's really about unification. That's why I call it applied integrative biophysics. So I'd like you to kind of think about that term, because we need to come together. It's all about unification. So I talk about coherence and integration, but unified fields, unified field theories, but they're, and about remembrance of who we are, all that we are. I totally loved what you talked about on being on purpose, because we're each here at this time, in this body, on this planet, on purpose, just so we can fulfill all of our highest purposes, never showing up here in the first place. So do it, go for it, do it now, do it to the max. You wouldn't have your highest visions, your greatest dreams, if we weren't here to fulfill them now. So let's do it. And I loved how you talk about seek and you shall find. Mine has always been ask and you shall receive as well. The clearer the questions, the clearer the answers. And so, and you did an analogy that I agree with. Seek and you shall find. You got to get, do the homework, do your homework. And if you look at your life and the homework you've done, that's just so you can fulfill your highest purpose. But ask and you shall receive. The clearer the question, the clearer the answer. And be still and know is really a commandment, and is really shut up and listen. And as you know, whatever there is to know from your higher self, no more need for the symptoms. That's what healing is wholeness, and remembering that holiness of our connections and listening. So I loved it. Would love to work with you on, you've done a lot of brain research, have worked with a lot of the top scientists in the world on brain research. Love to put that together. As far as past lives, I came in with the memories of my past lives and was talking about them from the time I could talk. But I was also the first person ever to do past life regression on network television.
Wow. Yeah, I'm with the right person then. This is amazing. We will have to connect. Yes, definitely.
The network television, that was 35 years ago now. No, 34 years ago. Let's take that back. 34 years ago, I was the first person to ever do live past life regression on network television. So that's part of, but it's part of my research, which, we have access to all this wisdom. So how do we access it and remember it? And there are technologies for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. I want to hear more of them.
I used to say too, there, whether you believe in past lives or not doesn't matter, because there have been a lot of past lives on this planet, and it's all in the cellular memory. It's in the DNA. So why wouldn't you want to access the wisdom and call forth the wisdom of all that, and be here now? Yeah.
That leads me to a great question I have for both of you. Carl, do you want to respond first? And before I go into the question, it's related to past lives. Yeah.
Go ahead. Ask the question.
So, all of us have been around the block in the spiritual communities, and I, for years, found it very unsatisfying and disconcerting when, you have hundreds, thousands of people saying, well, I was Sitting Bull, I was Jesus, I was this, I was that, right? We never remember ourselves to be, I was the peasant farmer number 5 on farm 28, like, so in the past few years, I heard this explanation, which was somewhat more satisfying. So I'm going to pose this to you. It is that we are sharing the group DNA of a particular figure's life, that the DNA and the epigenetics, the fractals, whatever you want to call it, of, let's say, Jesus Christ or Mary Magdalene can show up in thousands of people as facets in future lives. I would love to hear your comments on that. How does it work in your scientific model?
Are you asking either one of us or both of us?
Both. Why don't we say, Dr.
Okay.
Michael's taking a sip of water, so you got your mouth open. Go.
Well, if you look at, again, that code is a recording of that person, because you could produce that code again and get that same person. That's how you clone. So there's a lot of when you look at the offspring that somebody must have had Caesar or any of these people back in those days, there must have been so many of them. So we're so interrelated. We have to be related to some of these people on that biological genetic. But is there a spiritual code that we're related to? Because haven't you ever met somebody and you just get along with them like so well, like this is ridiculous? I've lived next to this person, or a relative I've had my whole life, and I can't jive with them, and all of a sudden you recognize these people. So I agree with what you're saying, but I think there's another level to it. I think there's a spiritual brotherhood, sisterhood around there also that we are very, very drawn to. And I don't know enough about it. I would ask some of your other experts what they think about that, because that's only on one level. I think there are other levels.
Yeah, we are multidimensional beings. So many levels, multidimensional. So there's group soul, there's soul groups, our spiritual family, where we've come back together here as a team sometimes, and you recognize people that are part of your spiritual family or team that showed. Oh, it's about time you showed up. I was wondering when you were going to get here, kind of things like that. And it was good you talked about the photons through the eyes, because the eyes are the mirror of the soul, the window to the soul, but it's the photons. And I talk a lot about photons. That's your quantums of light, and your DNA is biophotonic, right? So that's where our technology comes in. We do photonic fusion, and it literally activates that photonic memory of our light. But we are here to be the light of the world, literally to be that light of the world, because as we radiate our light, core of the DNA is the light from the stars. Our DNA is biophotonic. Prime function of DNA, storage of photons. And as we radiate light, nothing that is not of that light can affect us. And you recognize the other lights, that the only thing beyond our light and our love is more fully shared light, more fully shared love. And that's what allows the expansion of, this magical, miraculous time on the planet.
Thank you. Yeah, I know what you mean about the the group souls and different energies. I look at it as what I call dolphin pods. And we run with different energy signatures. Maybe it's our star seed, maybe it's where we're from in our original template. But when you see another, and then others you could be allergic to for no reason as well. And they're highly evolved and spiritual as well. So I find that all very, very fascinating. All right. Next question. I was listening very carefully to both of you. and you answered this, but I want to bring it up and illuminate it for more examination. Tech does not replace the spiritual journey, right? Science does not replace it. How do we best integrate and walk side by side with science and technology and things like medallions? You know, wearing a medallion can't handle my arrogance, can't handle my, right? So how do they walk side by side as we go through life, remembering who we are? So Dr. Michael, would you go first?
Well, tools, and yes, and I was asked to create a counterpoint to the abuse of power, to create a counterpoint to all the scalar weaponry and things like that, to create, you know, because we're being bombarded 24/7 with the EMF, the ELF, the radiation. We're living in a toxic soup of, you know, toxins in the air, the water, the food. How do we counter all that? By maintaining our integrity, staying strong, no matter what we're exposed to. So we developed a technology that is just, you know, totally supportive, a totally supportive technology. So it's a different concept, and it's pure science. I can go into all the physics, and it's pure science, but it's also pure spiritual science. And how do you use that for our benefit? How do you use science for our benefit versus division and enslavement? Instead, we want it for our sovereignty and our freedom.
Can science handle personality traits? I mean, I know it's neuroplasticity and, you know, I mean, we could go down the rabbit hole, but can a scientific tool also take the place of some of what we might call the hero's journey, or the seeking within and purifying the personality? Can that be replaced and not bypassed, but is there another way?
Well, in a sense, there's a way to bypass projected realities by changing. It's what I like to call accelerated evolution. How do you wake people up? You know, it's that 100th monkey. How do you wake people up? Accelerated evolution. Let's call forth that wisdom where they get their aha moments and just know. We go from the believer to the knower, where rather than theoretical or intellectual understandings, you have a total cellular knowingness and remembrance within you, but a knowing whatever there is to know, the knowing of which that allows all things to totally heal and clear as issues in your body, in your life, in your personality, in our world, in your relationships, where everything is relationship. We actually did a study on this, and they found high statistical significance, 95 people out of 100 on a personality orientation inventory test. 95 people out of 100, there were 5 points where they be more loving, more present, respond versus reacting out of old, you know, anger patterns and things like that, where you want to support people in aligning at a core level with their real truth, which is light. You can't make people heal, but you want to offer those fields of consciousness and aspects and activate, mobilize that light within, just like we activate, mobilize the body's stem cells, which is where all healing in the body comes from. But you're activating, mobilizing that light and creating coherence with that light versus destructive fields. Yes, we're living in fields. All life is energy. Everything is fields. But rather than destructive, disruptive, coherent, cohesive, unified fields is where, you know, we can then respond from a point of center versus being stressed out and saying stressed out and reacting versus responding from that 0 point type energy of unification.
Thank you.
And it's unification of all these aspects of self, because they were all important. How do you don't appreciate the light if you haven't experienced the dark?
Contrast, the gift of duality. It's the gift of duality is contrast. It helps us remember. And Carl, your thoughts?
Yeah, first I want to, when we're talking about spirituality and science, I want to make something clear. There's a massive difference between monetized science and science, okay? Who is paying for the scientific research and why are they doing it? If there's a pharmaceutical company and they want to come up with a new drug for high blood pressure, and they have $200 million to do it, and you start doing it because they want to come up with a new medication, and you said, diet and exercise, you're going to get fired. You have to. Science is directed today, most of it, in a certain direction of monetization. And so that is causing a massive divide between science and spirituality. It's causing a massive divide between science and science. So monetized science is running too many things. Yes, the money system and money and power and control is running the world. And this is where people, and I would love to hear Dr. Michael's view on that, where, what can people do right now? Look at the world right now. There's a massive amount of control. You see so many things that just aren't right. You see so many monetized protocols that just aren't right. So, I'm curious to, and we do see science. So what you're seeing a lot is science fighting with monetized science right now. The spirituality doesn't even have a chance to talk some of these times. So I would love to hear the spiritual community talk about monetized science and what does the spiritual community, how can people who are spiritual that want to learn about spirituality, how could they, what could they do? What could they do? And monetized science is also poison spirituality, because you have monetized spirituality. You cannot tell me you don't know tons of people who are supposedly spiritual that just want money. I've met some pretty powerful spiritual leaders. Not to name any, but they were there's one in particular, one of the world's most famous, is completely spiritually bankrupt. And I was like, this person does not need to ever give another seminar as long as it lives. But I've seen other people that have no money that are just so spiritual. And one of the most powerful spiritual beings I've met was, is in Los Angeles. She's just stunningly, and she doesn't even take on clients unless she really, really resonates with them. And how do you get those non-monetized spiritual people and spiritual leaders out front? While at the same time, how do we get scientists in front of the monetized science? That's probably the biggest issue we have in the world right now. Same with politicians. How do we get the non-monetized politicians out front? How do we get the non-monetized scientists and the non-monetized spiritual leaders out front doing what they're supposed to do? How can we get the Jesuses of all the fields speaking first and not being pushed off by the money?
Oh, that kicks it up a notch.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's the root of all evil.
I would like to ask Dr. Michael that question because I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. Dr. Michaels, your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. Do want to talk about that.
I know.
Yeah, because we want the Great Awakening and this accelerated evolution and going where everything's going to asset-backed versus the fiat-based economy, because the fiat-based in global enslavement, it's time for a reset, but not the version of the World Economic Forum, which would be AI and total enslavement through the vaccines and the chipping. And, so we're at a crossroad. And why have they been censoring the doctors and scientists? And we've come across that, the ones that bring out the real science have been being censored. But, the Great Awakening will not be stopped. We are the future. We have to be the future that cannot be stopped. There is nothing more powerful than love, and it's truth that sets us free. And there are enough people carrying that sword of truth and stepping up. Our job is to step up, and some of us, we're mad as hell, we're not going to take it anymore. But but waking up and going, enough already of this. Of the old programming, the old plan. And we're in deep shift, very deep shift as a planet, deep shift as a planet, really.
I
Shift is in
was
the
praying
main.
you wouldn't use the word I was thinking of, but thank God.
Oh, she rolled it
Yes.
out perfectly. She didn't.
Yeah,
She just
you
roll
did.
it out perfectly.
And I really think that's wonderful that you're saying that, because I see too many spiritualists talk about, oh, everything's wonderful, just give me money and buy my book and I have a few crystals to sell you. And I really think that I want to see enough spiritual leaders, not spend all their time bashing it, but definitely spending the time telling people, because if you go towards the spirituality and you get some of these people, because I had to throw somebody off my movie, even potential, because I saw that they were not real. And I said, I have to check you out, because it's just like friends. Did you ever have a friend where they keep introducing you to a jerk and you have to look at them going, who are you and who are you hanging out with? Because there's somebody in my life, and every person they've introduced me, even during this book, I'm like, dude, do you know any authentic people? So it does, you become the 5 people you hang out with, and the top 12 is your circle of influence. I tell everybody, clean that field. It's one of the hardest things in the world. Everybody says it's easy. Oh, I'm telling you, Medea said it right. Get a puppy and a goldfish before you hang out with another dysfunctional person. Really. I think that is one of the most powerful things you can do, because the old Chinese saying, if you want to fill the bowl, empty it first. Don't just fill it on top of garbage. So want to empty it, clean it out, disinfect it. And
Keep
then,
the love, let go of everything else. Say aloha.
because yeah, because I was telling people, we've all done this. I am totally 100% guilty. There are like maybe a half a dozen people you're trying to change, and and then you forget. Turn around, and there are like 7 billion other people. Why are you going to mess with the same 10, 12 people and ignore 7 billion? That makes no sense. And we get caught up in these things. There are amazing people everywhere. And I said, listen, if only 1% of the population was amazing and the rest were nutcases, that leaves how many? That's 700 million people, more people you'll ever meet in 10, 20, 100 lifetimes. You got so many. Don't worry about it. Just keep meeting them, and then you will attract. What I did learn is I did an experiment in like 2016. I wanted to see how many friends I could make in a year. Any single person I offer to buy coffee or breakfast for a whole year. And I only found out that I made friends through other friends. I didn't meet any authentic people just meeting them in an entire year. Of course, I was in Los Angeles, and that wasn't the best place to do the experiment. But it was very interesting, and I labeled them as star friends because they have a point to other people. And you've also got star enemies. Don't go with those people. But I did notice that you meet people through people, and it's really, really important, because that closes in on your tribe. And I never met a person in my entire life who said, oh, I have too many good friends. If I can meet another jerk to balance this out. I never met one person or ever heard of any person in the history of the world who ever said that. So, I think that we're always looking for other connections, other strong connections. But in the spiritual community, I want to ask Dr. Michael, how do you teach your beginners discernment in the spiritual community? Because there's, just as I say, monetized scientists, there's a ton of monetized spiritualists. And obviously, politicians. There's some great people who are politicians. Of course, we don't see all of them come up front, and they're overshadowed by the others. But how do you teach your beginners discernment in the spiritual experience?
I learned through the School of Hard Knocks myself. So, because I just love everybody. I came in loving everybody. I didn't come with what I call a spiritual bullshit detector. Didn't come with it.
Okay.
So, but however, a principle of alignment is letting go of anything and everything that doesn't serve highest purpose. And so you're keeping the love, letting go of everything else. And one of the principles of scalar energy is continual reorganization to higher levels of function. So you find the very, very highly functional law of resonance, I find and attract the most brilliant, amazing hyper geniuses that are putting our heads together, unifying to go, now, how do we heal all of this? How do we clean all of this up? We have everything to heal everything on this planet. And as we radiate light, and in the strength of our light together, as we come together, unified fields, as we radiate light, nothing that is not of the light can affect us. And so there's law of resonance is very, very powerful.
Excellent.
Thank you.
So what just a quick, Dr. Michael, what quick thing could you say to beginners who said, I heard of that spiritual stuff, I'd like to just see what it is? What message would you give to them?
Actually, can we hold off on that? Because I have a tied-in question for the end of our discussion that's
Oh, I'm
very
sorry.
similar. No, that's okay. I know you're probably used to being, as a filmmaker, being the interviewer, but I'd like to keep you firmly as one of the experts and tapping into your wisdom. So, all right. So I have a question, because all these things are triggering my thoughts. So, Carl, I heard you talking a lot about, right, the people we hang with, right, and detoxing our relationships, right, and we rise and fall to the vibration with which we associate ourselves, right? So coming back to you, Dr. Michael, early on, we made a placeholder for detox in general. And so one of the things that I'm aware of, right, is, quitting sugar helps the telomeres and detoxing. I have a couple of questions for you.
Yeah.
What do you recommend of, and I'm thinking about your medallion. I'm thinking about, different things that are out there to detox ourselves on all levels and go answer that question. And then I have another one behind it. That would be great. I would love to know that.
I'm going to go back to Carl's along with that detox piece. But it's as you give your body more energy, as the body has more energy, the first thing it wants to do is clean house. So you could do a parasite cleanse, for example. And I found that people doing parasite cleanses, I've experienced this myself personally, where you clear out some parasites and all the parasitical relationships just they leave, they just disappear, because as within, so without. There's a direct relationship. So that as you radiate more light, as you have that greater charge, as you give the body more energy, whether it's with the medallions, because these are very, very effective. The miracles were reported to the Vatican, believe it or not. I mean, all kinds of crazy miracles with these things, high tech and the low tech, scalar embeds, and it's very functional. And again, part of that principle of scalar is that continual reorganization to higher levels of function. So you're calling forth the wisdom and reintegrating into a higher level of functional. So it's true functional medicine. So of course, the body has more energy. Anything and everything you do is either giving you energy or it's taking your energy. Sugar suppresses immune function, for example, for like up to 72 hours at least. It's highly addictive. Sugar won't just feed, it doesn't just feed cancer cells. The actual research is sugar can actually turn healthy cells into cancer cells. So it's about radical self-love. If you love yourself, you're not going to keep poisoning yourself. And so again, if you love yourself, you're not going to allow others that also are destructive to your being, are disruptive, destructive. You're going to choose how you use your energy. Things are either giving you more energy or it's taking your energy. If it takes your energy, it sucks.
On all levels, right, Carl?
Yeah. Can I add to
Absolutely.
that?
Yeah. Jump right in. Thank you, Dr. Michael. Thank you. That's brilliant.
You asked a very important question with sugar, and there's a whole controversy. One of the things, and this is again monetized science. The way people are not going to like me for saying this, but during the Industrial Revolution, they used to put candy on people's workstations, and it wasn't even called food; it was called junk feed. And we knew it was dangerous. We knew it was bad, but they didn't care if the workers ate it. These were the white slaves. And they didn't care, if they ate it and they got sick, and they just replacing with others. And so what happened was somebody misspelled feed for food. And so the term junk food came from the garbage candy that they put on the tables. So it wasn't even supposed to be considered food. So when you have a candy dish, what you're really telling people is you're a slave, and this isn't even food. It was feed for the people doing the jobs.
And sugar was intentionally used that way.
Yeah.
Yes.
It creates addiction to abuse, but it's also part of it, like the fluoride.
And it was never even called
Mind
food.
control.
Somebody misspelled it, and it was called feed. So one of the things with the toxicity is, again, the message is they're lying. There's a monetized message that should never be. It's a bad monetized message. The whole thing with, Halloween and give everybody junk food. And I told the Girl Scouts, I said, they should fight and get some healthy snacks for these kids. Why do you have to poison everybody in order to,
and that's where the monetization, every dollar is a vote. What are you voting for? Every dollar is a vote. Quit paying for poisons. Quit paying to poison yourself, first off. And then what are you supporting on the planet? Are you supporting and are you empowering? Are you putting your energy into things that are raping the planet, creating more toxicity, or creating healthy, healing, and life, and supporting the planet and being this beautiful new heaven, new earth versus new world order?
Right.
I'm really... I just want to say I'm really grateful the concept of monetary science that you brought this in, Carl. That is a profound distinction that must be part of any discussion on spirituality and science. It's critical, and I never would have thought of it. Thank you for that. I want to talk about another. Do you want to add something quick?
Yes. Just real quickly, as far as the sugar. I had a sugar addiction, and I didn't know it because I used to say, oh, it's not as bad as this, until a friend of mine is a doctor. I said, I can't drop these last few pounds. I'm going to the gym constantly. And the two things that helped me was, first of all, realize that it's in almost everything, and you got to count it. They sneak it in. And the biggest thing in the world is never beat yourself up from what you eat. We always eat, and then we beat ourselves up, and it's stop that. If you eat 5 pieces of cheesecake, done. Do the experiment and keep moving on. Do not beat yourself up ever again. And that is
don't should on yourself, is what we say. Don't should on yourself. Okay.
Yeah. So when you do that and you realize it, you realize that I am much more satisfied because I lost 31 pounds. And I'm talking about somebody who goes to the gym who was in relatively good shape, because I wasn't looking at my potential. I was looking at everybody else around me. I was making excuses. I was lying to myself, and a lot of the stuff I didn't know. People are saying, "Oh, it's not that. Just lose weight. You're overweight." Blah blah blah. I didn't know that a latte, an unsweetened latte, was 8 to 12 pounds of sugar a year. I didn't know a sweetened latte was like 30 pounds of sugar a year. When 150 years ago, the top is 5. They sneak it in everything, everywhere. They're sneaking it in, and so it's monetized. So some of this really is not your fault. What it is we have to struggle so hard just to eat healthy. You see the eggs, free range doesn't mean anything, cage free doesn't mean anything. And so they're constantly monetized and lying to us. And that's what they are. Yes. So it's the monetizations that's doing this. So it needs to be in the subject. So I would love, Dr. Michael, if you would bring to your spiritual people a spiritual monetization too, because that is keeping people away like crazy. And it's keeping people away from the science, the truth. And it's keeping people away from both sides. So I hope this conversation sets off a wave around the world to separate the monetization. But again, I would say that the weight gain is number one thing is the hidden sugars you don't know about, the stuff you don't know about. And then when you go on, I had to go on
and the taste that kills, the neurotoxins, that addiction to abuse. So if somebody else is abusing,
it's more addictive than
abuse
heroin, they
yourself.
say.
Yes,
Addiction
yes,
to abuse.
yes,
But
yes.
real empowerment means making more intelligent, more informed, healthier choices for yourself, for each other, for the world. And that's where we want to go. More
Yeah.
empowerment.
And sometimes,
and that's where it's everything, every dollar's a vote, it's a choice. What are we empowering?
Yeah.
What choices are we making? Let's make healthier choices.
Yeah. So let me jump in here because this is bringing around full circle. I mentioned a few minutes ago, Carl, that you brought up the beginnings of two questions that I had written down earlier. So what I'm hearing is before we can even have discernment, we're suffering from a lack of education. We're suffering from a lack of accessibility to information. So I have two questions for you, and I'm going to pitch it to Dr. Michael first. The first, part A, where can we go to study science and get the information we need? Number one. This part B of the question, actually, that's part A. What do you think are the top 3 things we can do in our daily lives to move us toward that clean embodiment of light and love? So part A is how can we educate ourselves, and part B is then what? What are the top 3 things we can do practically every day?
Yeah, and again, I'm a researcher, and I tell everybody do their own homework. You seek, right? Do the homework. Read. That's do the research, do the study. I mean, there's a lot of information on our website, eesystem.com, and the research page and things like that. People can start there if they want. And then I do that. I have a lot of videos on YouTube. I also recommend, if they want to know more about COVID-19, for example, go to commission.itnj. That's the International Tribunal for Natural Justice, commission.itnj.org. And you'll find the emergency hearings that we did on COVID. But if you dig deeper, you'll also find what I feel is the real underpinning that we're dealing with, and of all the of all the control mechanisms on the planet, the monetization, et cetera, because it comes from the Rothschilds and the whole fiat currency and all that goes back. G. Edward Griffin, the creature from Jekyll Island, is one of the people we work with. But if you dig back into that further at the commission.itnj.org, you'll find that it goes back to uncovering the truth as far as the child trafficking, the organ trafficking, the satanic ritual abuse, because this is, the satanic ritual abuse is part of that whole Luciferian culture that has wanted enslavement, the New World Order, et cetera. And that's kind of the Achilles heel and underpinning of the evil that's been perpetrated and perpetuated through science and control mechanisms and the medical field, obviously, and things like that. So I recommend people do their homework and get ready to go down the rabbit hole. And there's a lot being revealed. There's a lot, the truth is what sets us free.
So I have a question for you. Going down the rabbit hole, I recently, a few months ago, back in January, I'm going to bring up QAnon. I was introduced to it by another healer, a person of light, and was told, just keep watching to the end, it'll be okay. Well, it wasn't okay for me. But then a few months ago, I was given some private links to go down the rabbit hole of QAnon. And here's my question for you. And Carl, don't worry, we're going to get back to you because I want your thoughts as well. I know everybody does. When we go down the rabbit hole, in fact, I called another friend. I said, I'm going down. If you don't hear from me in 4 hours, come get me. Right? Because the vibration can get really wonky for those of us energetically sensitive. So what's your advice when you go down the rabbit hole? What's a phone a friend tool that you recommend for people?
Gosh, awareness is power. Keep breathing. No matter what happens, keep breathing. Most important thing. No matter what happens, keep breathing. You're breathing light, breathing love. You know, the detox, when you have more energy, then you have more and more awareness. It's all awareness. Awareness is power. You can't, how are you going to heal the things if you don't understand how things were created? How are you going to recreate? If you want to change what's been manifested, you have to understand how it's been manifested. You know, putting blinders on or sticking your head in the sand isn't going to help us when it's about awakening and awareness. And that's where our power is. But
Yeah.
I do recommend people watch The Plan to Save the World. That's a good one.
Thank you. All right. So let's recap some of these. Commission.itnj.org, and your website is eesystem.com.
Yes.
.com.
System. Yeah, eesystem.com. And then we have
Okay,
a
and
lot
what is
on
it?
YouTube.
Yeah, and what is this documentary you're can you say it again?
Oh, the Plan to Save the World. That one's a good one.
Okay, great. Yeah, this is great because we're giving people resources. So I think that's amazing. All right, and then your top, do you have top 3 things or one thing, a practical thing to, even if it's a medallion, if it's anything you offer, please share because I'm so impressed with you. I know others are. So what do you recommend? Top 3 things.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, yes. I mean, I created technology based on a principle of by the truth you know, for one thing, but you know, but in Hawaiian we say pono. Maybe people have heard of Ho'oponopono, but the principle of pono is effectiveness is the measure of truth. Effectiveness is the measure of truth. Ho'oponopono means what's making right more right. You know, you don't make anything wrong, or the more wrong things get. So you focus on the perfection, and the more the perfection then can manifest more perfectly. So pono, effectiveness is a measure of truth. And my thing as a healer is, you know, I mean, I was recognized as one of the top healers on the planet. And that's how I developed my technology, from listening to 10,000 bodies, literally. And what allows instant healing, the secrets of kahunas, the secrets of instant healing, which is as soon as you're present with anything with love, it all heals. As soon as you get the message from higher self, what something's about, no more need for the symptoms, you know, and there's always room for more love somewhere. So I developed a technology that's extraordinarily effective. Now, effective, how well does it work? How functional, you know, effectiveness, how efficient does it work? So yeah, the EE system is very, very highly functional. And I'm a Virgo, so it's got to be cost effective. We put it into these medallions, into bracelets, because we embedded very high tech, which creates this nullification effect of detrimental fields. You know, it's robust. You know, we knew it was robust when NASA showed up at our door in the 90s. But nullification of detrimental fields goes out 2.2 miles just from one of our systems. And they all, you know, it's like Earth acupuncture. And each system expands the fields exponentially. But these are like a satellite dish receiver in a sense, but it reminds the body of the original matrix of the DNA, reminds the body of the original matrix of our red blood cells, etc. So you want, it's a tool, so you want to stay strong no matter what. No matter what we're exposed to, we want to go from 5G to 5D, you know, override it with a higher power. We want to stay strong in our light, because as we radiate light, as we stay in our integrity and our alignment with the light, being aligned by the light, with the light, as the light, highest powers of love here on earth, as it is in heaven, through us now, as we are that standing column or wave through our spinal column. We are the pillars in the temple. And as we radiate that light, nothing that is not of that light can affect us. That's also where our effectiveness is, because we are to be the light of the world. I'm also in that bloodline of Martin Luther, so it's in my DNA as well. He was the first Protestant protester.
Yes, yes.
He was a heretic, so I've been called that Dame Kahuna witch doctor. But we just want to heal the world. But these are very effective, and supporting the detox because it gives the body more energy. Then you want to drink more water. And there's a little lost secret to healing. Nobody talks about, and to me, it's criminal that this isn't talked about in our medical community. And that's salt bath, detox salt bath, 2 cups of salt. We are the salt of the earth anyway, right? Salt's very, very powerful for healing. 2 cups of salt, a pound of salt. You know, you can tell people to pound salt. Well, put a pound of salt in the tub. And the skin is the largest organ of elimination. It's the 3rd kidneys. So to me, it's criminal that they're not telling people with diabetes to do a salt bath to protect their kidneys. They'd rather have them go to dialysis because that's monetized, right? Ka-ching, ka-ching. So
Yes.
salt bath, very inexpensive, powerful healing tool. When Fukushima happened, I did stuff, and you can find my talk out there. We've been fooked from Fukushima. Now what?
Yeah.
And I literally know radiation from the inside out, from my mother fissioning plutonium in the labs from the whole time she was pregnant with me. And I grew up playing with Geiger counters and gyroscopes. When Fukushima happened, I said, we got to pull the radiation out of people's bodies fast. So we created a hypercharged EE salt, which people can get. And you want to spa at home. You gotta love yourself first. Take care of yourself first. But you want to spa at home and breathe hot water. You know, that's hyperthermia, steps up the immune function. That's the body's natural way of clearing viral loads, etc. And also you're clearing your relationship issues because the water works with the emotions, works with your personality things. Breathe, let everything dissolve into the water and let it go down the drain and say aloha.
Thank you. There was a lot of potency in your language and your energy, and it's all very practical. So just to come back, I'm very struck. I've never heard the definition of truth as effectiveness of the measurement. You know, effectiveness is the measurement of truth, which is Pono. I thank you for that. And the medallion and the salt can be found on your website.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right. So water and a spa at home is an elegant way of saying keep it clean, like Carl was saying, keep your energy clean. So Carl, let's segue to you. So that you already touched on it. How would you like to share your wisdom on how we can educate ourselves on good sources of science for, let's say, the layman like me, right? I'm an English person all the way, creative. So for the layman out there, what are good resources you might recommend? And then 3 top things for daily practices.
First of all, I want to, if you go on my website, Carl David Blake Productions, you will see a link towards quantum activation. Definitely pick up that book because I do give you some of the basics of what's going on and science and merging that with spirituality. So quantum activation, you can get it on Amazon. I took those books came as the beginning. Actually, the movie that I'm doing, I was taking notes to add to the movie. And then when all this COVID stuff happened, I'm like, hey, let's do a book, instead of, because all budgets say no one even knows what's going to happen in Hollywood. So I got a lot of those notes and I said, listen, we're just sitting here with all this information and nobody's not getting it out to anybody. So the book is called Quantum Activation. You can get it on Amazon. You'll see a link on my website, Carl David Blake Productions. That's a good start. One of the things is I'm going to give you the honest answer is it's not easy. It's not easy. I remember going through chemistry 1, 2, organic chemistry 1, 2, physics 1 and 2, geometry, calculus. There isn't an easy way you can do this. You can't just learn everything. It would be like somebody saying, how could I learn all the languages on the planet? Could you just point me to a YouTube video? Really? There is a lot. There is a lot. The first thing that you could do, it would be to go pick up a textbook at a university, go get yourself a textbook in that field and do the work. You're going to have to do the work. You have to flip through it and start looking at Oh, this is how chemistry works. Oh, this is what they're talking about. You know, one of the things that, you know, when I was watching some of the things that, you know, Joe Rogan was talking about on his podcast, and I'm looking at a lot of things, and he's a very, very smart guy, and he's, you know, he's knowledgeable. And one of the things that, you know, he's doing is the whole podcasting thing is very, very medieval, because this is how the kings learned. This is how royalty learned. They would invite the traveling scholars, like in the movie Mozart, where they would have traveling scholars come to each kingdom, and the rest of the 98% of the people were completely illiterate, which is crazy. And here's a figure for you that will blow your mind. They wanted to know which of the smartest dogs there were, and a dog called a border collie. I don't know anybody who's owned a border collie, but they're supposed to be the smartest dog. They can have a vocabulary of over 1,000 words, and they have Neil deGrasse Tyson interviewing a border collie. And it was stunning. It was stunning. But when you look at the elite and what they've done to the general population, that border collie, her name is Chaser, she had a larger vocabulary than half of every human being who's ever lived before 1800. Do you hear what I'm saying?
I'm actually trying to take that in. I know. I'm
I
watching
will
Dr.
say that
Michael
again.
scorched her face like me. Like, what? Wow.
Another species,
Wow.
a dog,
Dumbing down.
had a
is
larger
Yeah.
vocabulary than half of every single person who walked the face of the earth before 1800. Probably before 1850, but I could say definitely before 1800. So this is mind-boggling. This is the first time in the history of the world that we've defeated illiteracy, basically. And now we've done dumbing everything down. The elites are like, they gave us the education because of the Industrial Revolution, not because they wanted to stop slavery, because now they couldn't get the slaves they needed to read and write and learn the industrial. So it would have stopped anyway. That's what people don't tell you. So they wanted those junk feed. They wanted people to read and write and learn how to use the machines and no more. Now they're dumbing people back down the other way, and we need to fight. We need to fight for the teachers. I don't want to say that one profession is more important than the other, but teachers are probably the most important profession because all professions depend on it. So for what you could do is support the teaching profession, the university. Get these nutcases out of our universities, these cancel culture. What are they doing to our universities? This is, I even said, 20, 30 years ago, when our universities go, our country's over. We need to protect them with everything humanly possible. And so that's what you could do socially for it. What you could do personally is you're going to have to learn. You cannot just walk into a discussion with biochemistry and just talk to somebody like that. You have to do the studying. You have to understand what redox equations are. I've got this whole, I wish there were some times when I saw people pull the wool over Joe Rogan's eyes. I'm like, Joe, tag me, Rick. Please, I know the answer to that. They're lying to you. They're just lying to you. And it's funny because they just pull the wool over our eyes when you don't know that. And when Neil deGrasse Tyson was talking to Danica Patrick, and he was mentioning that, he goes, yes, I'm an expert, and I can make stuff up because you're going to believe me. But when you got the basic science, you're like, wait a second, you're wrong here. So I catch I catch people talking about science and the wrong, ridiculous amounts of time. And I'm not trying to point my finger at anybody, but there is no easy way. I studied. There's a picture of me I'm at somebody's wedding. I could see the notes popping out of my pants. Right, I have note cards, and I could see them just out of the pocket of a picture at a wedding because I was studying in between there because I had a massive physics exam. So I said, I'm going to use every single minute. There's a passion. I love science. I could learn forever. I could stay in those classes forever. So there's a lot. When I'm looking at the whole pandemic, I am overwhelmed by the level of ignorance across the board, from science to, and I know some of the scientists are not lying, to politicians, to spiritualists. I'm just astounded at what's going on with the COVID. I'm astounded. It's just astounding that they absolutely have no idea, none, what they're talking about. First of all, a common cold is a combination of up to 2,000 viruses. If you focus on one, you're not going to get anywhere. It could change constantly. You're not going to get anywhere. You need a better way to do this. You know, and I'm not, there is so much that is wrong. So you have to, getting back to the beginning, you have to learn your basics. There's just no way. You want to learn about health? Look at the top topics. The sugar, there's so many people. Dr. Fung out of Canada is brilliant with what he's saying with it.
Carl, how do you spell that? Give us a spelling for Dr. Fung.
Fung. Dr.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Oh, he's absolutely,
because I could guess 5 different ways to spell it already. Okay.
Yeah.
So because so sugar.
He's actually a nephrologist out of Canada, and the stuff that he said was absolutely brilliant. And what he was saying was, it's not just the sugar, it's the insulin spikes that are causing deleterious damage. And they told us years ago, well, calories in, calories out. As long as you go into the gym, you could eat anything you want, and completely wrong. Horrible, horrible advice. And they knew this. They knew this back in the 1920s that white sugar was terrible for you.
Yeah. So I am loving our conversation so much, and I have a lot more questions I want to ask. So let me just interrupt and bring you back to 3 practical tips, because I have other juicy stuff to ask you.
Okay, 3 practical tips of what?
So daily practices. So I'm hearing sugar is one, right? So, you know, get off the sugar. God. This is a big thing. Oh God. So let's put it this way. What do you do? What do you do to keep your energy clean? Because you're a big proponent of the bat. So what are some of your favorite practices?
You have to understand where the sugar's coming from, how they sneak it in. It's just really unfair to everybody in the world on how they're sneaking it in. If you need to consult with somebody and get help, go get help. You know, it's like we go to school for training. If I want to learn chemistry, then we go to school. What's wrong with going to, you know, about your psychology, about your health? What I did notice is I was more advanced than so many people, and I can't go to the trainer at a gym. I have to go, okay, no, who's the lead trainer? Because I know more than the trainers. Who's the lead trainer? That's my guy. You know, so if you want to do it, number 1, never beat yourself up again. I don't care what you eat, what you do, never, ever, ever beat yourself up. And this, you will catch yourself again and again and again. Don't do it. Don't do it. No, and number 2, you have to get rid of that sugar. I couldn't even go 0 carbs for a week. I went on a 3.5-day water fast. Dr. Fung is really big on it. Everybody told me, is it dangerous? You're going to die. No. So you could sit there injecting heroin, eating cheese fries, and scarfing out a pound of sugar. Nobody says anything. And you go on a water fast, and now all your supported friends are worried about you. Really? Yeah, like I said, get rid of those friends.
Danger.
You know, they're talking
prayer
about
and fasting is prayer and fasting. It's an old law. It's of what works.
Yeah. Intermediate fasting, you know, has been around for thousands of years. You know, look at the Muslims. They do it for 1 month. They do intermediate fast. So, you know, it's great. So the 3 things is, don't beat yourself up, be around good people. Because you're nervous to eat around them. We all do it. You know, we all have that tendency, and the food tastes so darn good, you know, and stuff like that. And yeah, oh, that sugar's a killer. That sugar's a killer. And then, you know, so many of the lies, because they're like, okay, trans fats. Do you know what trans means? No, it's just the bad part. Trans has to do with the configuration of it's the stereological configuration of the molecule in 3-dimensional space. And this is cis trans isomer, where there's 2 variations of it, and it won't fit into the substrate correctly because it's bent up. It would be like if you took a chair and you put one of the legs the wrong way, it would fall over. it's still the same chair. So that's it. So to say trans, it depends on which molecule it is. Yeah. So what you definitely have to do a little research. But if you drop the sugar and you around good people and you read those ingredients carefully and you never beat yourself up again, the way to pop off.
You know what I'm really struck by? Yeah, thank you. Thank you. What I'm struck by is I'm sitting here in the presence of two geniuses, and I'm really glad that we could distill such practical advice from the width and the depth of where your consciousness spans. That's going to be really helpful for people. So thank you. And yeah, so all right, just thank you.
And the beginning of this, I'd like to add one thing to that. I want to add a fourth. The beginning to this is we were not meant to be sick or overweight or anything like that. And a lot of this comes from trauma. And what I always tell people, if there is any trauma and what they're doing to us with this whole COVID is abuse of trauma right now, and you're seeing the manifestation of it, and to try to get as much help as you can. And when you're around negative people, the support just isn't there. When you're around good people, the support is there. Yeah. So it is hard. It's not like most people are like that. It's more difficult, but you have to be open to it. You can't stay in a rut and hang out with the same people and complain about them constantly. And you'll notice that when you start complaining about somebody a lot, you have to ask the question, it's either me or them. It's either me or them.
That's right. Yeah, very, very sage. Very sage. All right. So
I hate to have to cut this short because I have to be down in a little part of town, so I gotta run.
Yeah.
Because
Well, Dr. Michael, I had two questions that I was really, really wanting to ask you. Are you able to stick around a little bit more?
Yeah, Dr. Michael. Yeah, please get in touch with me, Dr. Michael, and we will definitely talk, because I wouldn't mind having you on that documentary when I do it.
We'd love it. Okay, let's connect more. Yeah, unified. Yes. We got to come together. We have to be that greater community by coming together. The only thing the counterintelligences have had going is they were a lot better organized. And so that's where that reorganization to higher levels of function, we have to become and be the greater community.
Yes, thank you so much.
Wow. World Parliament on Spirituality in action for everyone right now. Absolutely God brilliant. God bless us. All right.
Thank you. Aloha.
Aloha. Thank you, Carl, so much. I was going to ask him the movie he recommended out of all his movies people watch. But so go to his website. Carl David Blake Productions. He's got a list of movies. They look fascinating to me, so I encourage everyone to go check that out. Yeah.
So I like the movie Thrive too. Thrive.
Yes. The Thrive movement
is good. If people want to know about vaccines, Del Bigtree's done great work with Vaxxed.
Yes.
And his High Wire. There's so much information being brought out. People need to do their own homework. I don't think we need to go back to the physics books. They're teaching physics that, that was disproven 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So, the dumbing down of the school system, I totally agree. The dumbing down, the control, the Marxist teachings that they're doing. And, it's crazy what's been done through the school system, but it's the dumbing down of Americans. And so, nobody's teaching the real quantum physics, the biophysics, and, very few. And that's why I had, that's why I've gone and lectured all over the world on these things.
It's clear to me what an important bridge you are, because you're clearly a profound scientist and a woman full of mysticism and wonder. So to me, you're very important for the planet right now. I will say that from what I've observed and know. I really wanted to ask you a lot of things about Atlantis and today, the parallels and different things, but we're at the end of the hour, and there's something else that tugged at my heart. Would you share with us your vision for the energy wellness centers for veterans. Years ago, as a sound healer and singer, I had this crazy idea of what I called soothe centers, which were sound prescriptions where people could go. So you piqued my curiosity. It's vastly important. Would you share that vision as our closing question?
Oh, sure. And one of the places, if people want to watch one of my talks where I went through a lot of information, was for the World Sound Healing Conference. So you might relate to that. And sound is very important as well. But I've done a lot of work with the veterans. In fact, gosh, one of the books that we're in, Journeys to Success, and the chapter in here is called For the Love of Our Vets, A Promise for Veterans' Mental and Other Health Challenges. And it's a pilot study that was written up by Princeton-trained MD, Dr. Nadia Linda Hole. And it was a pilot study that was presented for the veterans and stuff. And so there's, just miracle stories, because to me, that's where a lot of the healing needs to be focused, is for the veterans, because they've had so much abuse. They've been subjected to the exposures they've gotten, and, their whole, and their families, and with all the exposures they've gotten and the PTSD. And I was just with a general yesterday having a discussion on this, and we're working on these healing centers. So also working with Vet USA, Jack Lineweber, Vet USA. That's the plan for the 1,100 wellness centers for the veterans with our technology, because we don't have time for all this one-on-one, practitioner dependent, doctor dependent, drug dependent. The general's talking about there's 20 some veterans a day committing suicide. The direct effect of the antidepressants is suicide. Dr. Ann Blake Tracy has that book, Pandemic or Panacea, on the antidepressants, SSRIs. So drugs, nobody's been drugged to health yet. And so, the addiction to abuse and what's been perpetrated through the monetization of the big pharma is one of the reasons people hate Trump so much. Is he couldn't be bought, and he's gone right up against, he's a wrecking ball. But he made a commitment to go after the child trafficking. He made a commitment to go the fall of the cabal. That's another video series you can pull up, The Fall of the Cabal. And so, but
I've seen it. I've actually watched it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You keep going. I'm sorry.
So I recommend those things. That the healing for the veterans. We've literally seen anything and everything heal. We just had somebody with a stroke, 2 strokes last month, and came in, and in 2 hours they could walk again. What's that worth? You have people. I just had somebody sent me a video yesterday. One of our EE system centers. Our technology is all over the world. We have a center in New Jersey. They sent a video, and the person, after one time in, their cataracts were gone, and they can now drive at night. Vision improvement at every level. We want people to have the visions, clarity of vision at every level, and live their visions. You need the energy to live your greatest life. No more excuses. And so that's why I created the technology. But it's non-operator dependent, non-practitioner dependent. We can have 1,000 people in at once if we want to. And it does the fields for the planet. We talk about grids around the planet, within the planet, making it easier for everybody to access fields of consciousness that have to do with alignment with true, best, and highest purpose. He talked about purpose, highest potential, our true exponential capabilities as the powerful, unlimited beings that we are here on the planet. So let's bring that healing. It takes people wherever they're at and allows them to reorganize to higher levels of function with wherever they're at, and supports, imagine a totally supportive environment that supports your spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical well-being. So that's what that's about.
I think that's what that's about. I think that's a beautiful place to leave it. It's been
And we love
a
miracles, and we need massive miracles on this
well,
planet now.
well, and when we live at a certain vibration, miracles happen every day,
Yeah, the
right?
blind seeing,
So,
the lame
yeah,
walking, the deaf hearing. Christ said everything he did and more were to do. Let's do this. He said, do it now. Let's do this now.
yeah, yeah. I could talk to you for hours, and I have to say, I feel incredibly blessed to have spent this time with you. And who you are and your participation in the World Parliament on Spirituality. I know Dr. Yugandhar is, and Grandma, I want to make sure I pronounce the last name correctly. I don't know if I can. Parisha, you know, I'm really honored to represent and be a moderator. It's been a
Thank you,
blessing.
Christine. You've been a beautiful moderator, but I also need to acknowledge somebody. There's a
Yes.
Qigong grandmaster. She is a master, Amalia Wai-Ching. That's who insisted that I should be a part of this. So we have to thank her and
Yeah.
acknowledge and honor her as well. So she's
Yeah.
just a fabulous being.
So let's do this. I would love to have you give the closing comments. And when you're done, I will gracefully move off to the music and we'll close the track. So would you close for this beautiful session today?
Would you like a kahuna blessing? Speaking of sound healing.
Yeah, yeah, baby.
Okay, I didn't know. I didn't even consider that I'd be doing this for this, but it is important, and I, you know, and I really honor the lineages that I spent 8 years studying Sanskrit and learning all the chanting and all that as well, because Sanskrit and the Vedas have the best explanations of physics, the best.
Going back 5,000 years, who knew?
And Ayurveda and yoga and all these things. I did 8 years of studying Sanskrit with a scholar, a true scholar. And so I'm very blessed with that, but I've also been very blessed, you know, to be recognized as a kahuna, the great white kahuna, through my teacher of the chants is Uncle George Naopi. He's now on the other side, but and we'll call forth all the beings, all the masters, all the master teachers, all the great white kahunas. Give them all permission to be with us, through us, around us, as us, however is in alignment with true best and highest interest. For this is for our benefit. We desire it for the good and for the blessings of all. And so be it. So breathing light, breathing love, expanding all capacities for love, opening up your heart to more love with every breath, so that that light and that love can radiate out to touch the hearts of all beings to feel more love now, and use the chant to carry you to its origins within you. Ai no na ke kuai kana hele ila e te ki o ko e na malikalani malu e ho e ho na wa na wa wai ke. Oh Lord God, Goddess, all that is, fill us so fully. We're willing to be filled so fully with your light, your love, your being, that you are truly indeed being in love with us, through us, and as us. And all impediments, all limitations, all restrictions, all impedance to that love can be released now through the power of that union of love within us. That, you know, we are the combined unified presence that can heal the world. Thank you, each and every one of you, for being here and being that light. Mahalo.